People forget that families are audiences, my grandfather used to say, meaning they watch, judge, and cheer from the safety of their armchairs. He liked to seat himself where he could see both the TV and the front door. I grew up thinking that was prudence. Tonight I learned it was a weapon. We were at Elise's parents' house, the kind of home that smells faintly of lemon polish and roasting almonds, where every frame tells a curated version of a life. I had brought the bottle of wine she'd asked for. She'd pressed her hand into mine when we walked through the front gate, smiling like we'd rehearsed the entrance. Her mother hugged us both like a woman pleased to be hosting a tableau, proud to show the family what her girl had chosen. Her father, a retired judge with a voice that could cut glass, offered the same approving nod he gave Elise's successes, the school honor, the promotion, the art show. I'd been part of this orbit for 3 years. I knew the constellations. Elise had invited me tonight because she wanted to tell her parents something. She'd been coy all week, the little laughs, the half-phrases in bed, the way she stared at the ceiling like she was rehearsing. She'd also insisted the announcement be private. Just us, she'd said. I don't want drama. So I was surprised when half the family, cousins, an aunt with a habit of arriving early to feed the dog, her older brother with his new girlfriend, were already assembled when we stepped into the dining room. Elise had told them, apparently, she had told them all. Her smile now had an energy that hovered between excitement and mischief. I felt the warmth of it and matched it with the steadier warmth I reserve for rooms that aren't mine. We sat, the clinking of silver soft as a prelude. Conversation flowed around us like a creek, updates, complaints about traffic, a neighbor's new extension. Then Elise's father cleared his throat, the signal that the main course was coming and that the main course would be delivered on a plate of attention. Elise reached across the table for my hand, and I squeezed back. So, her mother said brightly, we heard there's big news. Elise is glowing. She was. Her eyes were soft and beautifully bright. I felt a small, warm pride, the one that comes when someone you love is excited and you are there to witness it. Elise inhaled like a trumpet player preparing a note. We've been talking about the future, she said. Little gasps, tiny smiles. Her cousin raised a glass. I watched her chest move, she seemed to be savoring the air between the words. We've been planning, she said, and we might move abroad. A polite murmur. Sweden? Australia? Somewhere the family could imagine as exotic but safe. Then Elise laughed in that high, careful way that sometimes means she's not entirely sure how serious she is. She tilted her head toward me with a playful glint and said, he wants to quit and open a bookstore and live in the countryside, can you believe that? The words landed like a pebble tossed into a quiet pond, big enough to make ripples. A bookstore? Her father blinked, her mother's smile froze into a sort of forced cheer. In the countryside? The aunt laughed like it was a good joke. Elise's brother raised his eyebrows as if a punchline had arrived. I'd rehearsed my reply to this moment for a different audience, quiet, sincere, not defensive. But when Elise made the joke, the room leaned in the wrong direction. Her tone had the edge of mockery, as if the idea itself were laughable, not just unusual, but beneath our combined pedigree. It was a look I had seen once before in her cousin's eyes when they remembered I'd grown up in an apartment with a single radiator instead of a house with a boiler. A look that frames your choices as quaint eccentricities rather than serious life plans. People laughed. Not mean laughs, but the kind that smooths edges by pushing someone quietly back into their place. A bookstore, her uncle said, chuckling. That's quaint. You two would be romantics. Elise's father, the judge, cleared his throat in a way that felt like a signal flare. Elise, darling, a bookstore is a lovely dream. But don't you think perhaps stable careers first? A mortgage? It's a substantial change. Her mother nodded rapidly, making the concerned faces mothers reserve for experiments in youth. Is this something you've both discussed seriously? She asked. How will you manage? How will you pay for it? That was the line I expected. Practicality. The sensible concerns that disguise as care. I'd spent years preparing for these questions. What I hadn't prepared for was Elisa's laugh. It was soft, but unmistakably dismissive now. "Oh, we've been talking," she said. "It's just, he thinks it's adorable. He thinks a small shop and evenings arranging poetry is the ultimate romantic life." I said we should at least explore the idea while we're young. And she added, as if puncturing the tenderness, "Plus, a bookstore is a hobby, right? It's not exactly a career unless you're living in a British novel." Her family tittered. Her brother looked at me in a way that said, "How far you've let the romance take you." Her mother's face bristled with a mix of worry and the social calculation of someone already foreseeing rumors at the garden club. I felt the room tilt. Elisa's joke had made our plan, for which we had already sat late into nights planning logistics, savings, lease agreements, realistic forecasts for profit and foot traffic, into a whimsical tableau for their amusement. The thing we had been quietly nurturing was suddenly a family anecdote captioned with gentle ridicule. A slow, calm heat spread through me. Not anger. Not the kind that throws plates. Something cleaner. The part of me that measures words and stakes like stones. Every person in that room had just been offered a choice, to protect something delicate and ridiculous in the way only love can be, or to pretend the ridiculousness proved the impossibility of it. They chose the latter. I looked at Elise. She was still smiling, eyes dancing. I could see the mischief, and the miscalculation. She'd intended to frame it as a playful reveal. The room misread it as permission to deride. The people who loved her most were now laughing at the thing that bound us. So I did what I always do when the stakes are real and the mood short-circuits. I measured my breath, smoothed my voice, and chose clarity over crescendo. "Mom," I began, tilting my attention toward her, not hers toward me. "A bookstore isn't an escape. It's a business. We've been looking into commercial leases, foot traffic in the neighborhood, local reading groups, and a small events calendar. We've calculated startup costs and break-even points. We both plan to keep our current work for the first year to stabilize cash flow. It's not a whim. It's a plan." My words landed like a clear hand on the table. The laughter in the room shivered and died like a radio losing signal. People blinked, resituating themselves because now the thing they'd been made to mock had detail, numbers, a seriousness no one had expected from a cute dream. Elisa's mother's eyes narrowed, an old poker face used to assessing real risk. Her father's jaw softened, not because I had asked permission but because structure speaks to judges in a language they understand. "You've done your homework," the judge said at last, not unkind. He folded his fingers, thoughtful. "You've considered contingencies. What does profit projection look like?" I pulled my sleeve back and gave the figure I'd rehearsed at night while sifting through potential vendors. A modest projection, conservative assumptions, local footfall metrics gathered from public data. I spoke of inventory costs, community outreach, a plan to host lectures and author nights to attract consistent traffic. I intentionally left the romantic parts, the evenings with poetry and cups of tea, as the small reward for the hard work, not the business model. As I spoke, the atmosphere shifted from theater to boardroom. Elisa's brother asked practical questions about licensing. Her aunt asked about insurance. The cousin who had laughed now suggested a local coffee supplier he'd used years ago. The very people who'd been quick to tuck our bookstore into the fold of amusing youth were now contributing in small, practical ways. Elise watched me as if surprised that the romance she'd intended to make light had been fortified, not destroyed, by factual confidence. There was a look crossing her face, admiration, shame for the joke, and a dawning relief that we wouldn't lose the important thing because she had misread the room. Her mother reached out and squeezed Elisa's hand. "If this is what you want, and you have a plan, then we'll help you look into locations. I know someone at the council who can advise on permits." The judge gave a slow nod. "A business plan won't hurt. Draft it. Show it to us. If you demonstrate commitment and feasibility, there's no reason to scoff." The room exhaled a little. Conversation returned to ordinary levels. The laughter that had felt sharp and exclusionary faded into debate, logistics, and, eventually, warmth. When we left that evening, Elise walked beside me with a strange smallness. "Why did you have to make it so?" she started, as if annoyed at my interruption of her joke. I put my hand on her arm. "Because it mattered," I said simply. "And when something matters, it deserves to be taken seriously. Even if you forgot to at first." She looked at me then in a way I'd been waiting to see, no mockery left, just the quiet recognition that private plans are fragile in public. "I thought it would be cute," she whispered, voice small. "I didn't think they would laugh at the unusual," I said. "Families protect what they know and mock what they don't. But you gave them a reason to change their minds." She breathed, a soft surrender. "I'm sorry." "You don't have to be," I said. "Just remember that sometimes a joke can be a doorway." We stepped through with the facts. We walked home under the streetlights, our shadows joining like two people who had just learned a small, useful thing about the world, that measured words can change a room faster than outrage ever could. Support given with conditions is not support, it's a transaction wearing kindness as a mask. In the days after the dinner, Elise became unusually gentle with me. Not fragile gentle. Not apologetic gentle. More like someone who had glimpsed something in a different light and was afraid of breaking it again. I didn't pressure her to apologize. What happened at dinner wasn't betrayal, it was misjudgment. A crack in awareness, not a crack in love. Still, she walked with more care, in her words, in the way she reached for my hand, in how she checked in before cracking jokes about the bookstore. There was sweetness in that restraint. But sweetness can be a prelude to something else. And within a week, we saw the first sign that support, especially from family, always has a texture. It's never as soft as it looks. Sparkles the call from her mother. I was rinsing coffee mugs when Elise's mother called. Her voice was bright, lively, the kind of brightness that signals purpose, not warmth. Elise put her on speaker. "Darling," her mother said, "I've been thinking about your little bookstore idea." Little. The word didn't sting like mockery, but it didn't feel fully respectful either. It felt like how people call a young dog little, even when it's growing into something stronger. "Yes, Mom," Elise said, giving me a quick apologetic look. "Well," her mother continued, "I spoke with a friend in the council office. They know of a charming retail space that may open soon, very central, very good foot traffic." Elise perked up. "That sounds great." And, her mother added with the tone of someone delivering generosity she expects to be admired, "Your father and I would be willing to help you with the down payment." There was a pause, not because we weren't grateful, but because gifts like that come with hidden handles. You don't simply hold them. You are held by them. "That's very kind," I said. "We appreciate it." "Oh, nonsense," she said breezily. "It would be an investment. A family matter. We want you two to succeed." Lovely words. But something inside me tightened. Because help rarely comes without expectation, especially when offered publicly, proudly, by people accustomed to influence. Elise, however, was glowing. "Thank you, Mom. Seriously, thank you. You're welcome, darling. We only ask that before we commit any funds, you share your full business plan with us. We want to ensure everything is viable. That's all. That's all." That phrase always means there's more. After they hung up, Elise looked ecstatic. "See? They're taking us seriously now." I didn't ruin the moment by saying the quieter truth buzzing in my stomach. They take us seriously because I forced them to. And now they want a seat at the table they once laughed at. Sparkles the first draft of the business plan. Over the next 2 weeks, we worked on the plan. It wasn't romantic. People think building a dream looks like candlelight and inspiration. It's not. It's spreadsheets. Zoning regulations. Startup capital projections. Analyzing the foot traffic near public transit. Estimating shelf space for inventory turnover. It's tedious. It's thrilling. It's both. Elise sat on the floor, surrounded by colored tabs, sketching design layouts with pencils. She had a gift: her mind could create atmosphere, texture, mood. She imagined plants in corners and reading nooks with dim lamps and soft cushions for children's events. I focused on inventory management, supplier negotiations, cost margins, occupancy limits, community programs. We balanced each other. But something subtle appeared as the weeks passed. Attention. A tiny fissure. When I slowed down to consider financial risk, Elise urged enthusiasm. When she dreamed too big, I urged caution. She wanted the bookstore to feel alive. I wanted it to stay alive. These differences weren't conflicts. But they were foreshadows. For what happens when dreams become plans? And plans become tests. Sparkles the review dinner. Her parents requested a second dinner, this time at a restaurant with linen napkins and ambient lighting gentle enough to soften judgments. We brought a binder. The business plan. 62 pages. Neatly tabbed. Elisa's father opened it like a man reading a deposition. Serious. Silent. Analytical. Her mother skimmed through, eyebrows lifting in impressed little waves. The atmosphere was different from the first dinner, less amused, more evaluative. Less about us being young dreamers, more about whether we were competent managers of risk. Her father asked the first real question. What's your projected burn rate? I answered. Clearly. With figures to support it. Her mother leaned in. And your expected monthly foot traffic? Answered. Her brother snorted softly. You really did your research. Elise squeezed my knee beneath the table. Pride. Relief. It felt good. Support, when it stands on respect rather than pity, tastes different. But then her father closed the binder and cleared his throat. Overall, he began, I think this is well conceived. But before we invest, and we will, if the conditions are met, we need to discuss roles. Roles. My chest tightened. Elise lit up. Sure. Like who does what? Partially, he said. But also, who leads the business? The words dropped like a coin into a quiet fountain. What do you mean? I asked, calm but already aware. Her father steepled his hands. Elise has more experience in business-facing environments. She has stronger social networks. And the family name will help with community recognition. It makes sense that she take the primary leadership role. Elise froze. Her mother nodded approvingly. And you, dear, she said to me kindly, could manage operations. Logistics. Inventory. Your strengths. She said, strengths, the way some people say, limitations. Her father continued. We're happy to help fund the venture, but we need confidence that Elise is the decision maker. Not only because of skill, but because it protects our investment. Elisa's breath hitched in her throat. My own heartbeat steadied, too steady, the way calm sometimes feels like distance. That's your condition? I asked softly. The judge didn't blink. Yes. And if we say no? Her mother's smile became porcelain. Then we wish you the very best moving forward, she said. And we hope the dream still happens for you both. Translation. Without our money, good luck. Elise looked from them to me, panic flickering at the corners of her eyes. Because she felt the shift before I said anything. Because she knew what I would not do. I would not stand behind her like a silent partner in a dream we built together. I would not step aside in the name of practicality, just to earn approval. And I would not accept support packaged as quiet control. But before I spoke, her mother asked gently. Sweetheart, don't you agree Elise is better suited to lead? And that was the moment. The room didn't tilt the way it had at the first dinner. It sharpened. Because now, they weren't mocking the dream. They were trying to own it. Before Elise could answer, torn between loyalty to them and loyalty to us, I placed my hand over hers. And I said, calmly, leadership isn't assigned by investment. It's earned by contribution. The table went very still. Her father's expression froze into something more rigid than disapproval. Her mother's smile collapsed at the edges. Her brother looked down at his plate. And Elise. Elise looked at me with something luminous in her eyes. Recognition. But also fear. Because my response wasn't just an argument. It was the first line of a decision neither of us knew we would have to make. Sometimes the hardest part of building a future isn't the dream itself, it's deciding whose dream it will be. When we left the restaurant that night, Elise didn't speak during the drive home. Not in anger. Not in silence meant to punish. It was the silence of someone who was trying to hold two worlds together with trembling hands. Her family's expectations. Our shared dream. Her identity. Our partnership. When we reached our apartment, she walked inside slowly, dropped her purse on the couch, and stood staring at the wall as if the paint were whispering instructions. I waited. Elise had a rhythm when she was overwhelmed. She would breathe slowly, pressing her thumb to her palm like she was checking her own pulse. Finally, she turned to me. "Why did you say it like that?" she asked softly. "Like what?" "Leadership isn't assigned by investment, it's earned by contribution." "Because it's true," I said simply. She swallowed. "But, why did you say it there? In front of them?" I considered my words carefully. "Because they weren't offering support," I said. "They were offering control. And they expected my silence to make it neat." Her eyes flickered. "That's not fair," she murmured. "They want what's best for us." "No," I said gently. "They want what they believe is safest for you. They don't know how to trust something they didn't design." Her shoulders slumped. "That's not entirely wrong," she admitted. We sat on opposite ends of the couch, the space between us filled with an invisible weight. After a long pause, Elise whispered, "My dad wasn't trying to insult you. I know. He believes I'm more capable of leading something like this. I know. He wasn't saying you're incapable. I know that too." She looked at me, expression vulnerable. "But you heard it that way." I inhaled, slow and steady. "Elise, it wasn't what he said. It was what he assumed." She blinked. "He assumed," I continued, "that you must lead because he doesn't trust me. He assumed, because you come from his world and I don't, that your strength is strategy and mine is labor." Her face softened painfully. "And he assumed," I said, "that his money gives him the right to assign roles in our dream." Silence again. But this one was heavier. Denser. Because we were no longer talking about dinner. We were talking about something deeper. About identity. About power. About who gets to steer the life we were building. Elise finally said, "I don't want to lead the bookstore alone." "I don't want to lead it alone either," I replied. She exhaled, shaky. "So, what do we do?" Sparkles when pressure arrives disguised as concern. The next morning, I woke to the smell of coffee brewing and Elise pacing the kitchen in her robe, phone pressed to her ear. She didn't see me. She whispered, "Mom, please. I'm not asking you to choose sides." I froze. Her mother's voice crackled faintly, a tone sharpened by stress. "No, Mom, he's not against us. He just sees things differently." Pause. Longer. Harsher. "No, I don't think he's dismissing your contribution." Another pause. "No. Dad is not automatically right just because he's Dad." Her voice broke slightly. "Mom, please don't say that. He is capable." The words hit me like a slow punch. Her mother was questioning my capability. My seriousness. My right to lead equally. And Elise, my fierce, empathetic Elise, was defending me. Quietly. Trembling. But bravely. I didn't interrupt. I didn't want to add pressure to a conversation already straining against the boundaries of love. After she hung up, Elise sank into a chair, head in her hands. I approached gently. What did she say? Elise looked up, eyes reddened. She said. She swallowed. She said she's worried you'll drag me into a failure born out of idealism. And that the only way to protect me is to make sure you don't get to steer. My chest tightened. And then she said. Her breath shook. She said if I trust your judgment over theirs, I must not appreciate how much they've invested in my stability. There it was. The real cost of parental generosity. The debt disguised as love. Elise, I said softly, you don't owe them your obedience. She nodded slowly. I know. But you're afraid, I continued gently, that choosing us means disappointing them. Her lips trembled. I am. I sat next to her. You're not choosing between us, I whispered. You're choosing the role you want in your own life. Tears slipped from her eyes, not from weakness, but from the pressure of being pulled by two truths that loved her in different ways. I hate that this is happening, she whispered. So do I. Sparkles the moment that shifted everything. That afternoon, Elise received a text from her father. We'd like to discuss revisions to your business plan. Dinner tomorrow. But the line beneath it changed the trajectory. Please come alone. This is a family matter. A family matter. Not a business discussion. Not a supportive conversation. A family tribunal. To decide her future. Without me present. About a business I co-created. Elise stared at the message like it was a riddle she didn't want to solve. What do I say? She whispered. I held her gaze. That depends, I said softly. Do you want them to respect us as partners? She nodded. Then you need to show them we're partners. She breathed deeply, the kind of breath people take before jumping into cold water. Then she typed. If it concerns the business, he comes with me. We are a team. She hit send. We waited. 5 minutes. 10. 20. Finally, a reply. Understood. Dinner at 7. Elise looked at me with something new in her eyes. Courage. Fear. Conviction. All at once. I think, she whispered, tomorrow decides everything. She was right. Sparkles the dinner before the dinner. We cooked together that night, chopping vegetables side by side, the soft rhythm grounding us. The air felt thick, not tense, not heavy, full. Full of the weight of what was coming. Full of the knowledge that tomorrow, we would not be presenting a business plan. We would be presenting a united identity. As we ate, Elise reached across the table, took my hand, and said, I know I messed up at that first dinner. I know I made light of something serious. But tonight, I realized something. What? That I want this bookstore because it's ours. Not because it impresses anyone. Not because it fits into their expectations. Because it feels like a life I want to build with you. My chest swelled with quiet warmth. And, she continued, I'm done letting them treat you like you're less capable just because you aren't them. I touched her cheek gently. You don't have to fight them, I whispered. She shook her head. I do. Not for you. For me. That distinction mattered. Because love isn't proved by choosing someone over family. It's proved when you choose truth over comfort. Sparkles the night before the confrontation. We prepared our notes. We reviewed our plan. We anticipated criticism. But more importantly, we talked about what we'd do if her family refused to support us unless we accepted their hierarchy. What if they insist I lead? She asked. Then we walk away, I said. She swallowed. And we still build the bookstore? A slow smile spread across my face. Of course, I said. But on our terms. Her eyes softened. And what if? She hesitated. What if they want me to choose between their version of me and ours? I looked her gently, truthfully, without flinching. Then tomorrow, I said, you'll learn who you want to be. She closed her eyes. Nodded. Took a breath. And whispered. Okay. Let's find out. When someone finally chooses who they want to be, the room stops breathing, because truth is louder than any argument. The next evening, Elise and I dressed quietly. Not formally, but intentionally. She wore a simple navy dress, hair pinned back the way she did when she needed clarity. I wore a button-down and boots that weren't fancy, but clean enough to signal respect without concession. We weren't going as petitioners. We were going as partners. When we arrived at her parents' house, the table was already set. Her father had positioned himself at the head, her mother beside him, her brother across. The atmosphere wasn't hostile, it was procedural. Like they were preparing not for dinner, but for a verdict. Elise reached for my hand under the table. A small gesture. Powerful in its simplicity. Her father cleared his throat. Let's begin. Sparkles the interrogation disguised as concern. Her mother started. We reviewed the business plan again. It's very thorough. Truly. But we still have reservations. Elise nodded respectfully. What kind of reservations? Risk, her father said. Financial risk, personal risk, career risk. We've accounted for risk, I said calmly. The projections. Her father held up a hand. I'm not talking about projections. I'm talking about leadership. The word felt heavy, deliberate, like a stone placed at the center of the table. Dad, Elise said softly, we've already discussed leadership. Her mother leaned forward, voice syrup-sweet but sharpened at the edges. We don't mean to offend, darling. Truly. We want to help. But your father and I know business. And we've observed how decision-making works between you two. A pause. A look toward me. A look that said, we've decided who is competent and who is not. Her father continued. Elise has always had a strong strategic mind. She thrives under pressure. You, he gave me a polite nod, are meticulous, hardworking, dependable. But leadership requires more than reliability. Elise stiffened. Dad. He raised a hand again. You are both exceptional in your ways. But Elise should be the primary decision maker. For her future. For the investment. For stability. I stayed silent. Because the moment didn't need my voice yet. And, her mother added gently, if we're providing a down payment, we expect to have oversight. Not control, oversight. Oversight. Another word for ownership. Elise's throat moved as she swallowed. And if we refuse? She asked quietly. Her father looked at her with the kind of disappointment that feels rehearsed. Then we cannot, in good conscience, support this endeavor. Her mother folded her hands. We're offering help because we believe in you, sweetheart. We just want to ensure you're protected. Protected. From me. From shared decision-making. From a partnership they didn't choose. Sparkles the moment everything balanced on her breath. Elise's hand trembled in mine. She was looking at two versions of her future. One shaped by parental approval and financial security. The other shaped by independence, uncertainty, and us. Her father pressed gently. Elise, you've always come to us for guidance. Trust us now. Let's build this properly. She looked at him with a softness only daughters give their fathers, equal parts love, history, and longing for validation. Then she looked at me. Her eyes asked a question. What do I do? I didn't answer with words. I just squeezed her hand and gave her a look that said, Whatever you choose, choose your truth, not my comfort or theirs. She inhaled. A long, shaking breath that felt like the entire room hinged on it. Then she let go of my hand. Not to distance herself. To sit up straight. And she said, I appreciate everything you're offering. Truly. But I'm not letting you choose my partner's role for me. Her mother blinked. Her father's jaw tightened. Her brother looked up, suddenly interested. Elise continued, voice steady now. You both assume leadership is about who you've groomed me to be. But leadership is about the work someone puts in. Her eyes flicked to me, warm. He's done as much, or more, than I have. He's not support staff. He's not my assistant. He's my partner. Her mother's eyes filled with complicated emotion, pride, fear, resistance. Elise, she whispered, you're young. You don't see how these things play out. No, Mom, Elise said gently but firmly. You don't see what it took for me to grow beyond the version of myself you're still trying to protect. Her father leaned back, surprised. And, she continued, if this business is going to happen, it's going to happen with us leading it together. Equally. The room tilted. Her father folded his arms. And if we refuse to help under those terms? Elise hesitated only a moment. Then we'll build it without you. Her mother gasped softly. Elise. She shook her head. I love you both. But I won't start a life by teaching myself to need your approval more than my own integrity. Silence. Heavy, stunned, shifting silence. Her father studied her face with the eyes of a man assessing truth in a witness's testimony. Finally, he said. You've changed. Elise smiled sadly. I had to. He looked at me. And you? What do you want out of all this? His tone wasn't accusing now. It was cautious. Curious. I met his gaze. Not control. Not dominance. Just partnership. And the chance to build a life based on shared decisions instead of inherited hierarchies. He sat with that. Then nodded once, a slow, reluctant acknowledgement. Her mother dabbed her eyes. Sweetheart, we only ever wanted you to be safe. Elise leaned forward. Mom. I'm safer when I make my own choices. Sparkles the shift in the room. The air softened. Not fully. Not magically. But something real had shifted. Her father spoke first. I can respect your decision, he said quietly. Even if it makes me uneasy. Her mother added. If you both want to lead this business, we won't stand in your way. We won't fund it, but we won't sabotage it. We didn't ask for their money anymore. We didn't need it. Elise squeezed my hand again, not trembling this time. Steady. Grounded. Ourselves. Sparkles the aftermath, and a new beginning. On the drive home, Elise exhaled like she'd been underwater. I didn't know if I could say it, she whispered. You did, I said. And you meant it. She nodded. I chose us. No, I corrected gently. You chose you. And because of that, you chose us. She smiled through a sheen of tears. Is it crazy, she asked softly, to feel like this bookstore is more real now? No, I said. Dreams become real when you defend them. She leaned her head against the window. We'll build it, she said. Even if it takes longer. Even if it's hard. We will. She looked at me, eyes soft, steady, no hesitation left. I'm proud of us. I nodded. So am I. And as the city lights blurred past the windshield, the future didn't feel like a plan anymore. It felt like a place we were already walking toward. Hand in hand. On equal ground. Finally choosing the same direction.